Is it me now, yeah? All right. So welcome all. Welcome to another study / discussion with the Mighty Men Studies, Moses' Mighty Men. So my name is Michael Danzi, and we have...
Hey guys, I'm guessing I'm on the other side of you on the screen, Mike. Yeah, I'm actually, that works if I'm over there. But yeah, I'm actually blue. It's good to be here. And let me try this one. We have...
Is that me?
I hope it's you.
Because I'm at the left of you. All right. Yeah, I'm Jermaine Wong. I'm happy to be here. I'm looking forward to discussing the life of Aaron and how it relates to manhood, being a man, living in 2021. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, Mike.
All right, cool. So...
Oh, and I'm leading over to...
Yeah, we have... Turn your cameras on, guys. There he is.
whoever that is on top of me.
Leif, you there?
Is that me, yeah? Oh, sorry, guys. Hey, guys, my name's Leif. So glad to be here with my brothers. Can't wait to see what's going to happen today.
Cool. We have Darren. He's doing his thing, so Darren will be in and out, which is cool. And yeah, man. All right, so how I want to begin this study is just like an introduction with who Aaron is and what have you, okay? So, because for those of us who are watching, we're gonna have different people with different backgrounds or, different amount of knowledge of the Bible. So just literally just a brief introduction of who Aaron is, or was, I should say. And then also I'm just gonna go through like some snapshots of some interesting things I found, and then some questions, and then to try and get some dialogue before we get into the meat of the study. If I was to give this a title, the title I would give it is Yielding to Peer Pressure. Yielding to peer, I don't know if I'm pronouncing the word peer there, peer pressure, right? Now, when we think of peer pressure, immediately what comes to my mind is young people, tiny little kids, teenagers maybe. We don't think of peer pressure normally in everyday language. We don't think of peer pressure affecting someone who's in their 50s, someone in their 40s, someone's in their mid 30s. I'm 39. I'm going to be 40 in May, right? So when I think of peer pressure, I'm not thinking about my generation. Peer pressure, when we're fellows who go to church, and I'm sure you guys could resonate with this. When we have a discussion on peer pressure, who are we automatically targeting?
Yeah, teenagers, man. Or young people, yeah. Young adults, teenagers, young adults.
But like this, you guys, man.
Yeah.
No problem. Gather around. Let's talk about peer pressure. What we're saying is, let's talk about you lot and how you're struggling with peer pressure. But the word peer pressure just means that you're peer. You're so it affects every generation. Because these studies are focusing on men, then we're going to look at it in that context. Peer pressure, yielding to peer pressure as men. So let me just read this just to give us a brief for our viewers as well. Aaron is best known for his role in the Exodus. That just means a large body of people moved from one area to another. And in the Bible, we have an account of the Exodus of the nation of Israel being moved from Egypt as slaves to the land of Canaan. Best known for his role in the Exodus and for being the first of the Levitical or Aaronic priesthood. He was born to a family of Levites. This was one of the 12 tribes of Israel during Israel's enslavement in Egypt. And Moses was Moses' older brother, 3 years his senior. And you can read that in Exodus 7, verse 7. Now, the Israelites remained in Egypt after Joseph and his generation died, and they became quite numerous. And then the new Pharaoh that rose up, because the previous Pharaoh, when Joseph was alive, loved Joseph, respected Joseph. But then this new Pharaoh that arose afterwards couldn't care really less for Pharaoh. Give me a second here. And so, so moving on swiftly. So he ordered the Hebrew midwives to kill all the baby boys as soon as they were born. When the midwives refused, Pharaoh ordered all the people to throw the Hebrew male infants into the Nile. These laws had been enacted by the time Moses was born. presumably Aaron was born prior to those laws. Because remember, he was 3 years, when you read Exodus 7:7, he was 3 years older than Moses. So you actually said, well, how come he never got killed? Well, there's two theories, possible theories. Either the laws were enacted after Aaron was born, or he escaped because the Hebrew midwives, what they did, they said, hey, by the time we, the Israel women, they give birth so quick, by the time we get there, there's nothing we can do. All right. Now, let me ask you a question, and this is not a trap. I just want to see your honest opinion. You might know the answer to this or not, but hey, let me ask this question. Who, and this is connected to Aaron, and who was the one who went to Pharaoh and told Pharaoh, let my people go? Who's the spokesman, so to speak? According to your knowledge and understanding, who was the spokesman that went to Pharaoh to say, let my people go?
If you're going by Prince of Egypt, then it will be Moses. But if you're going by the Bible, then you will know that it was actually Aaron was the spokesperson for a long time before Moses even said anything.
Yeah, man.
Okay. Now, this is what's very interesting, right? Because I remember when I first discovered this, and the funny thing is when I first discovered this, that's what was in my mind. Because before Prince of Egypt, there was the movie, 10 Commandments, 3-hour-long movie, I believe, right?
4 hours.
4 hours, or 4 hours, right? 4-hour-long movie, right? Now that movie stamped in the mind, and even as we discussed it in church, Moses went to Pharaoh. Moses went to Pharaoh. Moses went to Pharaoh and said, you've heard it in sermons, and you're like, what? It's not exactly what the Bible says. Now let's just read that quickly. And this is important to set the stage. We're looking at Aaron. This is important to set the stage about Aaron. So let's go to Exodus 4, verse 14. Exodus 4, verse 14. Here is Aaron is introduced into the picture. All right. Now, this text we're reading. Let me give 1 second. So I can see everybody at the same time. Let me put this on 2 screens here. There. Right, here we go. So in Exodus 4:14, all right, Moses. Have you done Moses yet? You've done Moses, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. So there's always going to be a crossover because they're brethren, right? Now, in verse 14, Moses is making all these excuses. I can't speak. I'm not eloquent. Mm-hmm. And I believe it's either 3 or 4 times, correct me if I'm wrong, that gives about 4 excuses. Finally, the Bible actually says God gets vexed with Moses. It says, okay, then, your brother's coming to see you. And then in verse 15, it says, now I'm reading from the New Living Translation. I'm falling in love with this translation, right? It says, verse 15, talk to him and put the words in his mouth. I will be with both of you as you speak. I will instruct you both in what to do. Verse 16, Aaron will be your spokesman to the people. He will be your mouthpiece, and you will stand in the place of God for him, telling him what to say. Now, just to compound that a bit more, all right, if you go to verse 29 and verse 30, verse 29 and verse 30, notice what it says. It says, actually, let's read verse 27. Now, the Lord had said to Aaron, go into the wilderness to meet Moses. Now, let's pause it for a moment. I know what most of us are thinking. Like, let's be honest. When I say the word Aaron, just be honest. What comes to your minds, guys? Just be honest. What imagery, what events, what comes to your mind when we say Aaron?
Yeah, just
golden calf.
Golden calf. Come on, let's be honest, man. Golden calf.
I don't want to be the one to say it, but yeah.
Golden calf.
Yeah.
All of a sudden,
I can see the imagery. You know what it is? You know that scene in the movie, where he takes the 10 commandments and he goes, that's in my head, from the movies.
Now, this was interesting. Straight away, all right. So when I was looking at this, I'm thinking, I'm not seeing golden calf no more, because now I'm reading his life. Well, up until a certain point, I never had time to go into numbers and whatever. But I'm like, the first thing we think of is golden calf. So before we go into that, we're going to go into what happened there. Before we go into that, instead of thinking about the compromise that happened right there and what he did, what I'm seeing is, hold up, the Lord said to Aaron. So if God is speaking to Aaron, what does that tell us, guys?
Yeah, he's got a relationship with him.
Relationship.
Yeah, man.
Secondly, God is relying on him to do what Moses was supposed to do.
Mm.
Now, what's interesting, it seems, I don't know if I'm correct here, I don't know what you lot think, and give me your thoughts, jump in with your thoughts here. It seems Aaron was just going to come and visit Moses. So he said, oh, your brother's coming to see you. But then later on in verse, I can't see it right now, but later on, God says to Aaron, go to meet your brother in the wilderness.
Yeah, verse 27.
Verse 27.
Mm.
Yes, there we go. And the Lord said unto Aaron, go out into the wilderness to meet Moses. So before in chapter 3, when Moses is saying, look, I can't do this, man. They're not going to believe me, blah, blah, blah. God says, oh, Aaron is actually coming to meet you. And when he meets you, you're going to be glad. He's going to be your spokesperson. So it just seems like God kind of took the opportunity. Aaron is coming anyway. You know what? I'm going to use your brother to do this. But then he then tells Aaron directly now. So imagine Aaron's walking along the way. There was no trains back then, but he's walking on the way, and then Lord speaks to him. Hey, going to meet. So right at this point, Aaron doesn't know why God is telling him to go and meet Moses. Right now, what's interesting, if we go down to verse 29 and 30, Moses and Aaron returned to Egypt and called all the elders of Israel together. Aaron told them everything the Lord had told Moses, right? So what I want to get this picture first is it's Moses doing this, let my people go. And Aaron and Moses is doing this. So who should now the imagery is very powerful. We have artists in our and designers in our Zoom. We know imagery is powerful, right?
100%.
There's no images. There is literally no images that I know exist.
Very good point.
He picked Aaron as being the leader.
Why they don't even put that in the movies as well?
No.
Like they sensationalize Moses to the highest.
Yeah, to the highest. Yeah. When Moses is at this point is vacillating, like he's down like 4 times. And I'm sure, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, I'm sure I read today, in Acts, I think it's Acts chapter 7. Let me find it quickly. It says that Moses was eloquent. Let me see if I can find this. Give me a second there, right? If any of you find it before me, let me know. Because
verse 22.
No, I think it's Acts. No,
yeah, Acts 7:22.
Oh, sorry, Leif. You saying Acts 7:22, yeah?
Yeah. So basically, what it says is that Moses was educated in all wisdom of the Egyptians, was powerful in speech and action.
That's the verse. So I know we're talking about Aaron, but just to second, it says Moses was mighty in words and deeds.
Yeah,
and
correct.
It says he was learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians. So we know this is pure doubt. When God is saying no, go. So now Aaron is the spokesperson. So at the moment, Aaron's looking good, right?
Do you know what though, man? It says a lot. So it says a lot to me about God as well, because it's when, like you said, Moses is definitely vacillating at first. But I love like God responds to him like he's getting mad at him, like another excuse. But then he says, look, your brother Aaron's already on the way. It's like I've put it in place where Aaron's going to do the talking. I said that before you even objected. I sent him already. But it's true, like, trust me, as an artist, I always look and see what's out there. You'll never see a depiction of Aaron being the one carrying the rod or being the one doing the speech. You know, even from the beginning. And we know it kind of shifted a little bit later, but definitely at the start, like people probably didn't even really know who Moses was until like the 3rd or 4th plague.
I wanted to just touch on that. Like, I've never read this text before, Mike, yeah? Acts 7:22. And like,
how did you complete them?
I just Googled it, what you said, and it just popped up. Like, but I've never read it before because like this adds an extra layer to Moses to see him in a much more biblical way, if that makes sense. Because when you basically break it down, because faith and doubt are the same, you just believe one or the other. That's it. Like it's just both are belief. But what you see here is like, you're right. If he was already God chose Moses because literally of all Hebrews, he is the best guy. Right. You know, He grew up in the house of the Egyptians, knew the Egyptian ways, learned in Egyptian ways. So, and for anybody to have any ounce of respect to any Hebrew, it could only have been Moses. Even if they may have not liked what he said, they knew the position he held amongst them. And potentially he would have been learned more than outside of Pharaoh. Moses basically was educated as much as Pharaoh, because if Prince of Egypt is false, it's his brother basically that he's talking to, right? If it's not, Pharaoh is someone that's his counterpart, maybe even his peer that he would have went to school with, right? Whether it's his brother, in that the way it's depicted in Prince of Egypt. I like Jermaine. It's like no.
No. It's actually nowhere near that. It's actually, I mean, Moses would have been a big man for the Pharaoh of
the time. Yeah, good.
Like a real big man. Like they wouldn't have been peers.
Okay.
So the peer pressure would have come from Moses in this context. It would have either come from Aaron, or it would have either come from Jacob, who was round about his era. But the Pharaoh that he's going to speak to, like a younger, is a younger for him. It's
okay.
Like
he doesn't know him though. He doesn't know him.
He doesn't know him. Okay. Cool.
So
yeah, and that's where we have to like. And why I love what you've brought out here in this scripture is that God calls Moses because Moses was already equipped. But Moses is showing in the moment, which we also experience a lot, is that we have callings that come upon us. We are already equipped. And it shows us that, if we doubt our calling, we're actually doubting God himself. Like, we're literally saying that God is making a bad decision when we have a strong calling on our heart. That, that calling when it burns, like, I've called you to do something. Why have you not done it yet? And it's like, you go another year or another month and that thing won't leave your spirit. That's the spirit of God talking to you, right? Do you know what I mean? And if we say that that's a bad thing, then we're actually doubting God himself. We're actually doubting the decision of God. That's never struck me like that before as to like how I've seen it today.
Do you reckon that's why God was vexed with him?
100%. Why not?
That not the fact that you're not doing what I'm telling you, Moses, but the fact that you're doubting is actually, you're doubting me. You're doubting what I'm actually telling to you. You're telling me that I'm wrong, and maybe that God's sensitive them way there, but he might be like, look, what it is that you're actually doing is you're not actually being scared of doing what I'm asking you to do. You're actually doubting me, and this is something appropriate for me to make you know that I'm upset about.
Wow.
Here's an interesting perspective as well, Jermaine, as you just said that. This what came to my mind. Matthew 25, verse 25, we can take a principle here. If we read Acts 7:22, he's eloquent in words. So he has the actual human ability to accomplish the task at hand. Go and speak. I can't even get my words properly. Like, I stumble. I like reading it in the other modern day English. They say, like, I can't get my words together. Right? Can't get my words together. Matthew 25, verse 15, the talents. It said all the talents were given according to each person's ability.
Yeah, big point.
This story never used to make sense to me. Why it says a man traveling to a far country called his own servants. So the master, right? Why he was so vexed? Now we know this represents God. Why is he so vexed at the one who hid his talent? I thought, why is he so vexed? But it's in the judgment. He says, "You wicked and slothful servant." You can't be called slothful if you don't have the ability.
Wow.
Right, say you're discouraged as a man. You're discouraged. You're discouraged. So, for example, here's a concept that I came up with a while back because of my own experience. There's two men. They both don't wake up in the morning. They both don't go to work. They're both not doing what they're doing. Most of us looking at would just say, "You're lazy, man. You're good for nothing, man. Look at you right now. You ain't even done that with your life." But what we don't realize is one is actually discouraged. But on the surface, it looks like he's lazy.
Wow.
Because laziness can be interpreted, but you're not doing anything. But how do you know he's lazy? You haven't spoken to him. You don't know what's going through his mind. Do you see what I mean? So on the surface, it looks like he's lazy just because he ain't doing anything. But when you speak to him, he's actually discouraged. He lacks confidence. He lacks direction. He doesn't even know what to do. Blah, blah, blah. He's made some mistakes. So he's just like, you know what? I quit. So with Moses, we know how God was vexed. Like Jermaine, I'm expounding on this. He had the ability.
Yeah.
He had it in you to do. Now I'm going to go back to Aaron, right? Because the image, I want to focus on that point about the how Moses depicted and Aaron is left out. And I want to ask the question about, all right, imagery is so powerful that the imagery of this account is used to puff up Moses, right? So you get this idea. Now, we don't want to demote Moses. The Bible says he was the meekest of all the earth, right? But I'm just saying, where is Aaron? Now, he's a man. He was called. He spoke before Pharaoh. And other verses will tell you, he is the one that did the miracles. He's the one that did this. He's the one that said this. So really, he's the Moses during that the delivering of. But they're both there together, innit?
Yeah.
What came to my mind is this, guys. Could it be? Do we have imagery today portrayed about men that's so powerful, it's ruling the narrative, but it's not even true?
Think about your rappers, man. When they renting cars and houses and all that stuff, like they're wealthier than they are. Do you know what I mean? Sorry, Darren. I know you had a point, and I'm gonna.
I like where you brought it though, Mike. I'm gonna speak after Darren. Go for it.
No.
I think we're just nodding.
that was not a spokesman today.
I like where you brought it. So basically, what you're saying is there a Aaron Moses complex happening with the man them in 2021?
Yeah. So let me make it clear. Let me make it real clear without the question. So and then you're gonna respond. Yeah. So we're reading the Bible, this book called the Bible. Even if you don't believe in it, we've just shown you what you've seen about this guy's not even true in the movies. It doesn't matter whether you believe it or not. This is just an issue of fact, of accuracy, if that makes sense. It's just a statement of accuracy. Is Christmas in the Bible? No. Okay, that's it. You want to keep it? I keep Christmas, but it's not in the Bible. It has nothing to do with Jesus, right? So it's a statement of, we're just being accurate here. It's not in the Bible, right? Was it Moses that when I'm like, to do all of the, no. What does the Bible say? So I'm like, well, here's an image that we have, if we didn't read the Bible, that's being fed to us, and we go, ooh, Moses, ooh, wow. Moses, and then Aaron, golden calf. So what about imagery today is there imagery today that's being put forth about men, we're talking generally speaking, that's promoting a narrative about men that's not even true? Could it be?
Yeah. There's a golden calf narrative going on about the men today, when actually the reality might be, well, no, the men today were the ones that were holding up the rod. The men today were the ones that were speaking for God. Men today are the ones who are hearing from God and moving on his directives. But we're not hearing that narrative. We're already hearing the negative narrative.
But do you know what else? Like, this is what really gets me about Aaron. I have a lot of respect for Aaron because there's a couple of, like, the way he could have taken things. Imagine this, right? You're 3 years older than your younger brother. He gets to go to the palace. You have to live at home with the slaves. He goes off for 40 years and they call you back. And so there could have been almost this resentment that Aaron could have had to be like, I should be the deliverer because I've been around, Moses has been gone. But what I love is, this is why I have a huge respect for Aaron, because he is at the forefront in some ways, but he also knows God's called him to support and bring out the potential that Moses has. Because what Aaron does actually brings out Moses' potential. And I think that's what really strikes me about the narrative today is we always today focus on the person in front of the cameras, the main speaker or whatever. And there may be a whole support team in place that's actually allowing them to do what they're doing, but it's like, that's not important. It has to be like the one guy. And I think we like to make heroes. We don't like the story of like teams actually doing anything. We like to make one focal point hero and put all the pressure on that person. And yeah, I think that's one thing that I see with this is, we want to put Moses front and center and ignore Aaron's contribution, but God called Aaron specifically to get Moses where he needed to be.
There is a, I don't know if you have ever heard of Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
Very, very well-known psychologist and speaker as well, author. And he's got a book that's called 12 Rules for Life. One of the key things he basically touches on is the fact that how there's this narrative that's been pushed generally through what is called fourth wave feminism that basically diminishes the work of men and sees everything that happens in society as the result of the patriarchy. And one of the key things he basically begins to like touch on is this fact that many men that are growing up now are starting to feel very discouraged and are feeling like they cannot pursue, they cannot get ahead, because most things are pushed from this narrative that what you do that is masculine or manly is wrong. And then one of the key things that he touches on in his book is that, you know, to take responsibility and to take action is a very courageous thing to do. And especially as men, it's actually very important for us to do. And in this in this situation, when you see what's happening is that there's this narrative that many men are experiencing and feeling like it's happening culturally in the day and age we live in now, that to be very quote unquote masculine in that context is seen as something that's quite negative. So what he is emphasizing and what he touches on, and what we see it also from Aaron here, is that Aaron takes responsibility and he takes action in something that from a courageous standpoint should have been what Moses should have been doing. But Aaron shows the courage to step forward on behalf of his brother where his brother couldn't. And that taking responsibility and taking action is sometimes what, if you do that as a man, if you're like forthgoing, if you're ambitious, if you're going outright, sometimes that can be seen as a negative. And especially as a man, if you don't feel like you have those attributes, many men could be discouraged, but like you were touching on earlier, Michael, have the ability, but because they're not doing those things, they can feel very discouraged. And what Jordan Peterson touches on is that many men should work to become men who are men of action, men who are men of responsibility, men who are men of courage, because it's very important for men to do that. You know what I'm saying? And I love this story because it shows Aaron taking responsibility and action and the courage to go forward, do something on behalf of his brother.
That's a very good point, Leif. Just a quick little point. Actually, you said that there may have been, and it's possible there may have been possibly some resentment, but something stuck out to me that may challenge that just a little bit. It's a few words in Exodus 4:27. In the New Living, it says Aaron embraced him. In the King James, it says he kissed him.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, it does. Yeah.
So there was a good relationship there.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I think that's what I was saying, is that's why I respect Aaron so much, because in those circumstances, you might expect there to be something, but it doesn't seem to be.
Okay, yeah.
That's where, like,
okay,
I really rate Aaron at this point in the story, because he's just willing to jump in there, and he's like, he clearly loves his brother. He ain't seen his brother for 40 years.
Yeah,
but he clearly loves his brother, and that's the priority. So yeah.
Two people from the chat said that the resentment came later. That was from Timothy, and one from D. He manifested resentment later on. But just going off from what you was just saying there again, Ash.
Yeah, that story is way down the road. Correct.
It's way down there. But I swear we read in chapter 4 that the Lord, did the Lord tell him to kiss him, or did Aaron, when he saw him, he kissed him?
It just says,
he kissed him.
Yeah, it just says he kissed him. God just said when he comes, he's going to be glad to see you.
Yeah.
Cool. And I think that's not like a wasted, like there's no wasted words in the Bible. For God to actually say that, it's reassuring to Moses, like, this guy's missed you, you're in safe hands, you know, he's on your team kind of thing.
Yeah. So something else I want to bring out is in Exodus 5:22, and I'm talking about, we've talked about Moses, but I can't separate. It kind of like, yeah, they're linked in it. But Exodus 5:22, Moses doubts again what he's been sent to do. So you look at Exodus 5:22, then Moses went back to the Lord and protested, "Why have you brought all this trouble on your own people, Lord? Why did you send me?" So Pharaoh doubles the workload without providing the stress. You have to go and find it yourself, man. But keep the same output as before, right? Now, it's not Aaron that went and complained. It's Moses that went and complained. And that's what's interesting. So if you imagine a scenario, Moses, like, he's getting vexed. And just imagine, you know, you think someone's really vexed as well. What? You know, you've had to complain, like, I've never worked in corporate, but imagine you're in corporate, like an office situation. You're like, yeah, it was like, yeah, and you're the only one going to complain, like, yeah, and you walk halfway down the hallway, and it's just you, and then everyone's like, hey, I got a mortgage to pay, I got 5 kids to feed.
But that could be because you don't hear that the people wanted to kill Aaron. We hear that the people wanted to deal with Moses.
At this point, Jermaine, was it at this point?
Isn't it at this when Moses went to complain? When Moses was complaining, it was because the workload had been doubled, or work completely.
I believe they complained to both. I believe they complained to both of them, but I may be wrong. These details are important. But continue your point, though, Jermaine.
Yeah. So if because I understand the point. If this Aaron is exercising a better quality of faith, it seems, because he's not the one complaining about why the calamities come from what God has asked them to do. But that may be because the fire is coming to Moses.
Right. Okay.
You get what I'm saying? That the buck is stopping with him. So this is why it's just like, right, these people are coming to me. They want to deal with me. Why have you put this upon me? And it could be what you're saying. I believe it probably is what you're saying, but I'm just saying we have to cut him a little bit of slack, because Aaron might be getting the second hand wave of contentment from the people.
Right.
Moses might be the one getting the forefront of it.
Okay. All right, that's a valid point.
They complain to both of them, though. Exodus 5 verse 20 says they complain to both, but Moses is the one that goes before the Lord.
Right, and yet, thank you for confirming that, because it was that detail. All right, yeah, because okay, cool.
Moses does this a lot, though. Like even before they finally go in and do the first plague, Moses is just moaning. Moses' issue, even though we're not talking about Moses is just doubting his own ability. And so what I'm seeing here is that God has gone, cool, I know that you doubt your ability. I know that you're going to keep coming back to me. So I'm going to use Aaron to make you the man that you need to be. That's powerful. That is so powerful, because what God is saying is you need a man around you. Because up to this point, I mean, we're going to talk about Jethro in a couple of weeks, but up until this point, Moses has just seen some woolly men, if you know what I'm saying. Like,
Egyptian men.
Like Aaron is probably the first man he's ever going to see, if you like, who doesn't complain, just gets on with it. I don't know why, he just doesn't. He doesn't go with, it's almost like he said, I'm not going, it's almost like you can imagine him having a discussion. I'm going to go to God and complain, and Aaron's like, well, I'm just staying here because I'm cool. Like, you go and complain about what issues you have. I don't have any issues. I understand what's going on. Why possibly? Because Aaron's been in Egypt for 40 years. Moses has been in the wilderness for 40 years. Aaron has a better perspective of the Hebrew situation than perhaps than Moses does. So maybe that's why he doesn't go back and complain as much, because like, well, I get it. These people have been working really hard. Like, nothing's happened, but it's going to take time. So let's just keep going. Let's just keep it moving.
I like that, Darren. I like that.
Kind of a slave mindset, though, in a way. Not in a negative, and I don't mean it in a negative, by the way. I mean a servant mindset. Like, that's what.
Yeah.
Go on, Ashley.
No, I think you're hopefully going to touch on what I was about to touch on, which is that there is something God has said to them. Moses, you're going to be like God. Aaron's going to be like your prophet. So Aaron does know at this point, it's not all on me, but for Moses, he's sort of like, the buck stops with me. And also bear in mind, I mean, Aaron's known to them. He's been a slave with them for 40 years. He's not the troublemaker who's come out of nowhere. Moses is that guy. So I feel like Moses has on his head, these guys are going to blame me because Aaron was here before and they weren't working harder. But when I came back, so I don't know.
I think that's a valid point. If we're looking at it with a reality perspective, I've never considered that before. That they're gonna treat Aaron differently from Moses. Moses is an outsider.
Yeah, man. And he grew up sheltered.
Yeah, Moses is an outsider for most of them, and he squandered the responsibility that was supposed to have been given him. You've been in the palace, and then you've been missing in action for 40 years. Now people have been born and died since he's been gone. So in I'm just speculating, in their head, it could be like, well, that ship has sailed. But Aaron has been here. Aaron has received the whips on his back.
That's what I'm saying.
Received the no food certain days, So I will more relate. I'm not going to bring it to Aaron because I know that Aaron is going to be suffering with this extra stuff. He's not exempt from the fulfilling what Pharaoh has to do. He's right there in it. Moses can go back to Midian if he wants, and leave all of them there. You get what I'm saying? So I can understand why Moses would have been like, "Rah, you've asked me to do something. You've caused all of this extra stuff," and you know what I mean. But I do think it's to Aaron's credit though that he is not penned down. That Moses didn't feel the need to pen down that he also complained.
Yeah, that's it.
That could be. They could both feel like they've got grounds to both complain. So I'm glad that Aaron is not one of the ones that was complaining.
I want to draw out what Darren said because this is very powerful. The point about God saw that Moses needed another man to help him become the man and to fulfill the position he needed to fulfill. On my notes here, and if you just type in any Bible software, Moses, Aaron, it just comes up like all the time. So many instances, Moses, Aaron, Moses, Aaron, Moses, Aaron. And I'm not going to read out all of them, but do that for yourself. And as you read the whole Exodus account, like Exodus all the way to chapter 32, but just to see it for yourself, Moses, Aaron, this phrase, and I put it under the title joint partnership. God is sending, and Pharaoh actually referred to both of them like a team. It doesn't say Moses, it says Moses and Aaron. He called for Moses and Aaron. So he's, vilifying God's character to them. He's arguing to both of them. So he saw it as, you're both a nuisance. So here there's equal responsibility and authority here. And I like that point that Darren brought out because, guys, come on, man. Do we or don't we or have we or how easy it is to support? And I'm not talking about strangers. I'm talking about our own that we say we're friends, we're brothers. But then, let's say you both have an idea. Let's not call it ministry, right? I don't, that word is loaded and it means so many different things to so many different people. Let's just say you've got an idea and and it could be a business idea. It could be a ministry idea, but you want to work in partnership on something good, something wholesome, something positive. You start a football club for the local community. You start a little restaurant, or you start a little podcast, or you start a little Zoom, live Zoom, whatever. You're working together. Is it going to be smooth? Or every week, right? All your ideas, you just expect them to be accepted, right? And you'd be like, yeah, man, because when you're on your own, everything you come up with, you think is great. Let's be honest.
Yeah, correct.
Which man sits there continually doubting himself, right? When you don't, generally, I'm speaking in general terms, that I don't. You think it's great. And I bring it to my wife and she's like, nah. Now, let's be honest. How do you feel? As men, when you come up with an idea you think is cooking and you show it to your woman,
you're not feeling it.
And she's like, that's rubbish, man. She isn't saying those words, but she gives her constructive criticism. I don't think that's really a good idea because of blah, 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 blah. Or it's not your woman, but it's someone close to you. How do you feel?
Yeah, that is hard.
Thank you, Jermaine. We got
that is hard, especially as a like what you were saying, as a creative, when you spend time producing a baby, and then you think, and one of the people that you really want most to see that your baby's cute, or how you've decked out your baby, how you've done it, that person who's closest to you, that's the one that you want to appreciate the most. And when that person is like, even if they're just like, yeah, okay, you're just like, no, much less them say, no, that's rubbish. You don't even want them to be like, you want them to be like, right, yeah, that's amazing. But I reckon we need that. Because that fire is what brings us out of mediocre.
Yeah.
That fire is the thing that produces excellence in us and doesn't make us feel cool with just okay. Because we might think that are okay because we worked a little bit on it and we produced something. We might think that, yeah, we worked hard on this, but it's not excellent. And that excellence it just requires like a little bit more fire, a little bit more push. And sometimes that fire can only come from that closest person. And sometimes that fire can only come from the man them who are close enough to be like, oh, bruv, come better than that, man. Or bruv, man up, man. Sometimes when we need to hear that. And sometimes we might be at a place where we don't want to hear that. We don't want to hear man up. We don't want to hear the brothers telling us, yo, picks up a little bit, especially if we don't know if that brother is trustworthy. Especially if you've been feeding into a narrative that you can't trust the man them, because the man them are like crabs in a barrel. They just want to, you know that narrative that we hear is like, you can't tell your man them your deepest things because they're going to steal it or this or that. You know, that golden calf narrative. But we do have, and I think this space, and I hope that we're developing brothers, that we do have brothers that we can trust enough for them to be like, man up, bruv. Or no, that's not.
Do you think that Aaron actually does that for Moses, though? I don't think Aaron does that at all. I think Moses becomes confident by hanging with Aaron, but Aaron doesn't become that person. There's someone else who becomes that person for Moses. Aaron's a yes man. Like, that's what I see. Like, unfortunately, it is what it is. Like, sometimes you're just as big as your loudest gig, and his loudest gig, unfortunately for Aaron, is the golden calf. Despite the fact that he is the first high priest of Israel, which is like no mean feat. Like, the first high priest is like, whoa. Like, everyone who has to follow high priest has to look at Aaron for what a high priest should look like. Well, we're talking about the golden calf, and there's a moment when Aaron has got an opportunity to be a leader. And I know we're going to get to this in a bit, and it doesn't happen. And so you never hear Aaron going to Moses, what are you doing, bro? Like, what are you going to God for? Like, calm yourself down. Like, God told you this was going to happen. Just be cool. Let the plan run. God already told Moses that Pharaoh was going to harden his heart. This was going to happen. Like, what are you there? Why are you complaining to me about something I told you was going to happen? Why are you complaining to God? Like, that's what you're saying is not what Aaron does. So whilst Aaron is there to make Moses a man, he's not doing it in that way. He's doing it in a different way.
Yeah, I mean, whatever way he's doing it, whether he's saying man up Moses, whatever, Aaron is one of the guys who are closest to Moses that is helping bring that fire. Now, it might not be man up Moses, or it might just be how Aaron responds to God in contrast to how Moses responds to God. That might be the fire that Moses is looking at and being like, right, I need to be more like Aaron in my
let's fast forward, because Darren's brought it up. So let's fast forward. Do what we really want to discuss. It's on our mind. Let's jump to Exodus 32, yeah? Because there's a question I want to ask that was based upon something Darren said, which I found was very interesting. I was like, okay. Darren said something which is key. Aaron was a slave. Aaron, was treated as a slave. So Aaron has got an intimate relationship with Israel in a way that Moses hasn't got. Now, what is good though about Moses, we don't want to put that down for our viewers. We know the Bible says, I believe it's Acts chapter 7. Let me just find this for reference. What's the verse now? Give me a second. Hold on. My brother gave it to me today to help me out. Give me 1 second, guys. If you know where it is, basically, it says that Moses came to his age, I think 40 years, and then like he saw one of the Israelites getting, manhandled by an Egyptian, and then he kind of 23. Like went into flip mode. 23. Yeah.
Yeah.
Acts chapter 7.
23.
Yeah. I just like to get the reference, Right. No. Right. So when he was full 40 years old, it came into his heart to visit his brethren, the children of Israel. Verse 24, and seeing one of them suffering wrong, he defended him and avenged him that was oppressed and smote the Egyptian. Exodus said he buried him in the sand. He looked left, he looked right, and just did him over. He murdered the guy. Clean. Took him out. Right? Now, even though the action was wrong, there was a sense of justice.
Yeah, correct.
Even though the action was wrong. God did not condone that. That's not the way I want you to deliver my people. It's going to be done my way for my supernatural power, so no one gets the glory, right? But, so when we go to Exodus 32, let's go there now, guys, right? Exodus 32, just bringing some context. That's Moses' natural character and disposition. Aaron's, we can fill in some details here. If he's born a slave, if he's in slavery all of this time, then it kind of makes sense, the line of thought that Darren is going on. And I can see that. And I'm liking that thought. I can see that would make sense. So when it comes to the golden calf situation, Exodus 32, right? Exodus 32, verse 1. Exodus 32, verse 1. Okay. Let me just get it here in the NLT, Exodus, because that's what I've been using. I got King James here, NLT, so I hope I don't confuse no one. Exodus 32, verse 1, it says, when the people saw how long it was taking Moses to come back down the mountain, they gathered around who?
Aaron.
Now, let's take the background. You know these people, some of my brethren, yo, yeah, like you're literally, you've been beaten down with them. You've maybe helped some of their grandmas up. You've maybe gone to the funerals of some of these people. So I'll be honest here, there's a thought process coming that I never appreciated before. Thank you, Darren. And I thank the Lord, but thank you, Darren, as well, right? Because I'll be honest, the study is what? Yielding to peer pressure, right?
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, man. I saw myself, peer pressure, it's over there. Got that on the locks, man.
Yeah.
Compromise, people tell me, come on, I'm a leader, man. What? I'm not like that. No, man, not me. Here, but not me.
Yeah.
But when I put the context, is it harder? Like if it was family, let's put it in that context. Let me read it like this. When Aaron's family saw Moses was taking long, they gathered around him.
Yeah.
Do you see the difference now?
Yeah. Because I've never seen that before when it says they gathered around him in that context. As think about it's almost like the Bible's saying their automatic response was to go to the one that they felt closest to. In a way. You know what I mean?
Well, not stretching. I don't want to stretch. I don't like not stretching too much, but you can say that safely because what Darren said, it makes sense. But he was a slave, Moses wasn't.
Yeah,
so we take those ideas. I see your hand, Ashley. If we take those ideas into there, it's going to be easier to yield to the wants of these people that you've both received bruises, bro. You've both grown up in the same situation. Now they're saying, right, what he did, we know that, but we're trying to
can understand,
learn from this, right? Because it's easy to remove yourself from compromise. And I'm talking about the negative definition of compromise, yielding to a lower standard. It's easy to remove yourself from Aaron when it's just them people. Yeah, you listen to them. Yeah, but when it's mom, dad, girlfriend, wife, or good friend, you might think twice. Man, do I want to let down my bro? Depending on what the situation is. I'm just bringing that in there. Ashley.
Yeah, no, I think what touches on it more is, you know, when you used to read the story and you were like, Aaron, where did that come from? Like, why did you build an idol? Like, how does that even make sense?
Yeah, good point.
And then you realize something about, not only was he with them, but he was with them in Egypt. And the thing is, they're not randomly saying, let's build an idol out of nowhere. They're doing what they understand. They're like, we've been led by a God. We can't see him. We don't understand that because where we come from, every God looks like this. They've got a statue somewhere. They've got something we can bow down to. So they're not saying, let's worship another God. They're saying, this God that we can't see, can we have a form that is represented by him? Let's worship him in the way we know how. And that makes more sense for Aaron to go with that because he was raised in the same country. He's still an Israelite, but he gets what they're saying when they're saying, you know what, let's make this God that we've been following and let's put him into a version that we can understand. Let's make him a golden calf. And this is why when he says, this is the God that's brought you out of Egypt, that's a stupid thing to say if what you think he's saying is we're worshiping a different God. What he's saying is, this is the God that we've been on his side. I'm just Egyptifying him. That's not a word, but you know what I mean? So we can understand. And you get why he would go along with that because he was raised the same way they were raised. Whereas Moses was kind of kept from that. So it's weird. Like we see it from today's lens. It seems like the most crazy thing to do. It's like out of left field. But you can understand why Aaron doesn't object too much because he's like, I kind of get that. I kind of get where they're coming from. You know what I mean?
Jermaine, did you have your hand?
Yeah. I was gonna say that is I've never considered that. I've never considered that, and it makes me. There's two things. It makes
Jermaine, you've never considered. Just to be clear,
I've never considered that Aaron Aaron might be reasoning from a place of these are my peers, like from a place of extreme peer pressure, but it's a peer pressure that we might not have been able to appreciate because we've never been slaves with these people. Aaron has been slaves. He's received punches and bruises. So when they're saying, when they're appealing to his sense of reasoning, think about it, Aaron. All the gods that we know have faces. Why not just worship the God that we've been following, but just so it can make it easier for us? Now, we're looking at that and saying, bro, no, that's wrong. But we got the privilege of looking in hindsight. But I'm seeing why some of our elders now get worried when we do stuff like a games night, or when we do stuff like a movie night, when they're thinking, well, you're trying to make a golden calf, you're trying to make things easier because of the context and the cultural background of where you're from, and it's easy to fall into an Aaron-like thing. So I can understand why they might get nervous when we come up with some type of ideas, because this is what they're doing. Let's just have an idea of making a golden calf. They're still worshiping God, but let's just make it easier for us to understand. And I know that we use language like that in our day, which our elders might get a little bit concerned about, thinking that we might be making that mistake. Another thing, again, is that I'm still not making Aaron off the hook all that much. The reason being, I understand the peer pressure element, but again, Aaron was a slave. However, as a slave, he's the one who went in front of Pharaoh and said, not once, not twice, but a few times, and doing stuff. So it's not like he's not got a taste of standing against oppression as a slave. He knows that Pharaoh can do what he says he's going to do. So for the fact that he had the courage to go in front of him and be like, yeah, let's do it. He's going, so it's different for Moses now, because Moses is coming from, he's God. It's like God versus God when it's Moses and Aaron, when it's Moses and Pharaoh. But it's Pharaoh versus Aaron, who is a slave. It's the slave standing up to Pharaoh. So he's got some backbone in order to do that. He's developed some sort of thing. So I'm not letting him off the hook that easily, because he's had the courage to stand up to Pharaoh. So he should have had a little something there to be like, yo, you lot, relax.
Yeah, but I hear you.
It talks to the strength of peer pressure again then.
Yeah, because the thing is, the reason why I'm really liking Darren's point, me personally, this ain't we all got to accept this, but me personally, because when I was reading this the first time, I'm like, Aaron, man, come on, stand up, put your back, shoulders back, and say no, right?
Argue a bit.
I'm reading the text again, and look here, when I read it in NLT, the King James did the same idea, right? Look what it says. It says, when the people saw how long it was taking Moses to come back down the mountain, they gathered around Aaron. Come on, they said, make us some gods who can lead us. We don't know what happened to this fellow, Moses. Yo, man, like, who's Moses really? Like, we don't know what. So they're going on pure faith. They had enough evidence of who's behind these two guys. Because remember, when they went in the first meeting with the elders, they called the elders. And then they showed them, Wagwan, who's behind us? Miracles. So it's like, boy, God of Abraham, okay, this is the real deal. They didn't just come with words. They came with real deal. Okay, confirmation. God has called these guys. So it's just that idea, this fellow Moses. But then there seems to be Aaron, this fellow. So again, I'm not condoning compromise. Of course, not breaking the law of God. The law wasn't even written down yet in stone, but the law was there in principle, right? But anyway, I hear you, Jermaine. I hear you. Ashley, you had your hand.
Yeah, no, this is where I know we were going to get into it. Maybe this is where we touch on that point, because you know what I said earlier, that it would have been logical, at least a little bit, for Aaron to be feeling like maybe I should be the spokesman. You know, I'm the older brother, I've been there, but he doesn't seem to do that early on. I am wondering if this is the part where he's thinking, I can be a leader. You know, they left me in charge. He's a substitute teacher. And I think this is the point where you realize, like, God has called Aaron to a specific role and Moses to a specific role because they're suited to them roles. And I think this is, for me, this is a huge lesson as a man, is to be, not to never strive for anything, not to never, if God calls you to something, be ready to do that, but to not try and take it upon yourself to live in the shoes of someone else. You know, so like real life example, like we've known each other for a long time. I'm a media guy. I do photography, I do video. And so when we're in ministry, like back in the day, obviously I'm doing the media, Leif, you're the same, but we might be surrounded by the preachers. And so, you know, in your head, there's a part of you that's thinking, I wonder if, you know, I'm called to do that. And it's not to say that you can't, but you start thinking, let me do it in the way they're doing it. You see what I mean? And it's weird because once you get comfortable with knowing what God's called you to be, you might actually do the same thing. You might do the preaching or whatever, but it's when you've got the mindset of, let me do the thing that the other guy's doing. And I think for Aaron to get to this stage, I think there's an element here, for me personally, again, this is, you know, if you completely disagree, that's cool. But there's something about the way he acts here that lets me think maybe he thinks he's sort of qualified for the type of leadership that Moses was called to, but he wasn't called to. And in doing that, this incident lets him know that's not the type of leadership you're called to, Aaron. There's a different type of leadership that Aaron's called to, but I think this is him trying to almost live in someone else's role, live in someone else's shadow. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. How do you reckon he would have? How should he have responded then?
So this is the thing. What would Moses have done in the same spot that Aaron was in there?
Again, that is leading into my thing, because going on from what you're saying now, if he's not supposed to be trying to fulfill Moses' role, should he be asking what would Moses do in this instance? Because that's probably what he thought he was doing.
To be honest, yeah, in my opinion, Aaron did what he felt. Not, how can I put it? Sometimes they say your first response is your natural response.
Yeah.
So even though it may not be the right response, you actually may potentially have not reacted in another way because that's how you felt to react in the moment. Does that make sense? Even though what you did may not be right,
yeah,
like you never thought of another option, or you were too scared to take the other option. Does that make sense? So even if you thought of the plan B, even if you thought of the Moses option, this actually was the response he took, because like Michael and the other guys were saying, he was actually with those who were his kindred. Are you with me? It's not like Moses. Moses doesn't have the same natural affection to the same people as an Aaron does. So when Aaron's making a decision, he may know of a Moses type of decision, but he's also making it from an emotional position as well. And that's also the rub, if that makes sense. That's the rubber meets the road. And potentially, I believe this is maybe God allowing this situation to happen to start working these kinks out of Aaron, as much as he's also doing the work with Moses on the top of the mountain.
Yeah, I agree with that last part. I would say, sorry, Darren, I know I see your hand, but one thing I say to that is, I cut him a bit less slack when you read on in the text, because it's interesting. It's like that first verse, I'm with you, I can understand why he'd acquiesced to them, but then you keep reading on and it's like, it's weird because he takes a lead role. He's like, okay, guys, bring all your gold to me. And then they make the golden calf. And I think the thing that really gets me about it is afterwards, when Moses said, what got into you? What possessed you to do this? It's the way he responds. He says, well, the people gave me their gold. I put it in the fire and this calf came out. Like, I'm like that. He knows he's in the wrong. He knows he should have acted differently. Now, don't get me wrong. His instinct was probably saying, do this. But I'm like, I think that's where, to Jermaine's question, Moses has been in this situation before where the pressure of the people is on him. And I think he loves the people so much, he's willing to give up his salvation for the people in other words. But he's been in that situation that Aaron was in before. And he had the strength to stand up and be like, no, we're not going against God. And I think at this point in time, don't get me wrong, I don't think this is what defines Aaron's whole life. No. At this point in time, he shows that he's not made of the same stuff yet. He hasn't, something's not there yet.
But do you see what I'm saying though, Ash, around these? I believe this is the reason why. And, everything's divine. We know all things work together for the good. We know this is literally divine. Yeah. So this is why I believe God separated to show. Does that make sense? Like like, because like Michael was saying before, you're reading Moses and Aaron, Moses and Aaron, Moses and Aaron. And now we're seeing Moses on the mountain, Aaron's with the people. Now let's make the rubber meet the road, if that makes sense. Moses isn't on the mountain having a time with God that will change his life. And Aaron's with the people having a time with the people that also will change his relationship with God as well. It makes sense.
It reminds me of, Daniel chapter 3, where Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they have to go through something without Daniel. They don't come out like Aaron does, but it's like, I think you're right, God has to separate them at this point.
That's what I'm saying.
So we talked
sometimes I believe, that, and I've even seen it maybe even in my own journey, that sometimes God has to do a work with you that in a collective or with a relationship. For example, like, I don't know if any of you have, I shouldn't call it missionary dating, but you ever dated someone that's not, she don't believe as you believe, are you with me? And it's like, you think she's on the same journey, you think she loves Christ in the way you love Christ, but she's saying the things, right? And doing the things, but her relationship with God is not where yours is at.
Absolutely.
Like, so you're unequal in that sense, right? But it's because her relationship with God has to develop to a place where you feel comfortable. Does that make sense? And you can work together, right? And sometimes we can even do that with our peers, where peer pressure could be, okay, the guys are doing this or the girls are doing that, and then we do what everybody else does for the peers. But then when you are by yourself and you're now, my own spiritual journey is getting tested, I ain't got no guys to call. I ain't got no girlfriend to lean on or anything like that. Now it's me and God. We have to work this out. And it's also in that alone time, sometimes you could be exposed in a way you may have been able to hide in a collective or in a relationship. Now by yourself, you can be exposed in a way that situation wouldn't have allowed. That makes sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Can I jump in? Guys, so I hear what everyone's saying, and for me, it is powerful, all right? And we're trying to give Aaron a little slack here and there, and Jermaine's like, he's not having it. He was not having it with Moses a few weeks ago, which is cool by me. But here's the thing. This is why I'm this is deep, okay? For me, it appears that God is revealing to Aaron who he is. That has to happen. Aaron has to know what the type of person that he is. And Aaron's, it looks like he's weak, or maybe this is a moment of weakness. But here's the thing. I know that sometimes we look at this and say we have the benefit of hindsight, but the benefit of hindsight is important. And thought came into my head. There's one of my favorite rappers. His name is The Truth. Done an amazing album with lots of people actually. Don't worry about it. Moving on. And he's got this line in one of his songs, which is "Experience is the teacher of fools." I thought about that and I thought, cool. So what you're basically saying is fools learn by experience. Actually, no. Fools learn by experience and become wise. All right. We need to look at this big time properly and go, what mistake did Aaron make? And how can we avoid it? Because there is a massive consequence of Aaron's reluctance to stand up. 3,000 people died because he decided not to have a backbone. That's deep. That's how deep it is. Like, you need to have a backbone, bro. You need to speak up because people could die. And here's the worst thing. Aaron doesn't get punished for this. He gets rewarded with, like, high priest. This is God we're talking about. He doesn't get punished for this. 3,000 people lose their life because Aaron decides that, you know what? Cool, I'm not even going to argue with you guys. Just give me the gold, let me make a calf. Wow. And then when Moses comes along, even though he made that blatant decision to do that, he gives Moses some stupid story. I put some gold in the fire and a calf came out. Really? Really? Yeah, that's true. So like, yeah, I put some food in the oven and out came my dinner. That's what normally happens. Whatever. Yeah. And you can see it, for me, that is deep, because what it's saying to me is that we need to think about the things that we do and the things that we say and forget worrying about let's learn from hindsight. Let's not dismiss this. Hindsight's important. That's why we've got the word, not because we will have to have our own experiences. Because I used to hear young people say it all the time. Nah, bro, let me have my own experiences. If there's a hole there, don't tell me about it. I want to fall into the hole by myself and learn from it. Go on then. Yeah, that makes no sense to me. There's a hole there. I'm telling you about it so you don't fall in the same hole the next man fell in. Pay heed and pay attention. That's so deep. That's why we're looking at Aaron. That's why the golden calf is so important. Not because it defines him, I don't think it does, but because it tells us the kind of men that we should not be in these situations.
Yeah, very good point.
So because of time, how then, thank you, Darren, for leading to my next thought. So then how then do we not compromise? How then? How then do we not? What is it going to take to be in a place where you don't compromise? And there's no time to really give specific scenarios, because each scenario is going to be different, has its own nuances. You know, you know, we all have different seasons in our life. There was a time when I was single, I had no girlfriend, then I had a girlfriend, and then that had its challenges. And then now I'm a father and I'm a husband. You see, so for me, you know, there's going to be different scenarios I'm thinking about when they talk about compromise. You know, when we were in church, gathering in church, there were situations that would arise, you know, where we could think about that. We're not in that situation now. So generally speaking, what principles, or how can we, because the big elephant in the room is this for me. When it comes to men standing up, generally speaking, like when we're growing up, we look like followers. And that's most of people's experiences. Not everybody's. There's few men when they grow up, they weren't the follower. They were the leader of the pack. Like they made the boys steal, or they made the boys join a music band, something good, something positive. Like they were like that. But those are few and far between. That's not the general trend. The general trend is, you know, like when I look at teenage boys now, I'm frightened. I'm like, why are you not just, you know, one barks, you all barking. You're just following each other. Like, who's the leader here? It don't seem like there's any leader. They're just following each other, you know, in their way. And I'm like, okay, so what is that all about? And how do we, you know, not compromise? What is it that's going to make us not compromise? If you have compromised before, what lessons did you learn? I'm asking a few questions in one because of time, so we can kind of think about and unpack it. Give our viewers something meaty to chew on and to leave with, something practical.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you talk about how do we not compromise, Mike, I think part of, for me, there's kind of like two ways that I look at it. On one aspect, because we are Christian, there is the closer we are to God, the more we will make wise decisions. You can say that, right? But then at the same time, you also make decisions that reflect your understanding at the time. So when you've made a decision and you've gone down a negative path, or a path that's hurt you or done wrong in some way, I'll be honest, man. And this is where I'm working it out with you as you say this, because it's a very deep question. Like, are you wrong if you make a bad decision? Sometimes, you know, you may have needed to have made the bad decision so that you could learn to not make the bad decision. Are you with me? Like I'm not trying to say
that's not compromise, though, isn't it?
Yeah, go on.
That's not compromise.
Okay.
No. Compromise.
Okay.
Compromise is
when you know
there's two paths. Let me give the definition, dictionary definition. There's two, and the one I'm referring to is, it says the expedient acceptance of standards that are lower than is desirable. Now that could be positive or negative, but we're talking in the negative, right? So I hear what you're saying, and I think probably why you're probably thinking that maybe because somebody later on has convinced you compromise, and you're like, but I was making the best decision.
Yeah, I didn't know. Yeah, good point.
That was not compromise. That's just a bad decision, and light came, information came out. Man, I didn't know. You know, that's not compromise. Compromise is, you know, man, I know I'm supposed to give Leif like £20. You know, I'm going to tell him that I know what I'm doing here. So carrying your thought process though. Anyway,
because like in that context, right? How to not do that really comes down to, you know, a lot of times we compromise because the expectation we fear more than another expectation.
If you're getting somewhere now, good.
Does that make sense? It's like, do you remember before I spoke about faith and doubt? Both are belief, but you choose one or the other. You either faith, you expect a good outcome, so we move in that accordance, or doubt, I expect a bad outcome, so I'm like, I don't want that, so I'm going to go down that route. You know, when the Bible says I set before you two options, therefore choose, but it's still choice. And it's like, you know, if you expect the outcome to be, you know, good, then you're going to go down that path, even if it's bad. So for example, I remember the first time I lost my virginity, And like, I know it's a bit random, the point, but like, it was I knew it was a yeah.
You're a virgin.
But it's like, it's mad because I had gone through the whole of like secondary school, college, like first year of university, and I went through and when I mean peer pressure, when I was in Jamaica, it was proper peer pressure. Like, it wasn't even hard to get it wasn't even hard to get ladies. Yeah,
it's all right, bro. I think
do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
come on. It wasn't like a difficult thing because the environment breeded that kind of way of living. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, sex was just a norm. So when I came to England and I came back to England, sorry, and I went to uni, I remember when I did it, not like it was, I was like, oh, like, you know, when I was like, by the end of it, I was thinking, so wait, I denied and all of this, and I was like, like, not like it wasn't like it wasn't bad, but I was thinking, wait, so all of this,
the expectation.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Didn't meet the reality.
Yes, thank you, Mike. That's what I'm saying. And then the reason why I'm saying about the whole compromise piece, it was a compromise on my part, because when I look back in hindsight now, as we're saying, I expected it to be amazing, bro. I was in the moment. I was like I know it's bad, but I desire that outcome more than to do a Joseph, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And that's what I think happens a lot of times, is like compromises because we're expecting the outcome to be so much better than going down the other route. Yeah.
Thank you. I like the way you unpack that principle so far. I want our viewers as well to really get the mechanics, the honesty of ourselves when we compromise. For us, it's going to be different. But I like that principle you bring, because it's like, when I've lied, what did I expect to get away with it?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
But my expectation was to get beat. So let me try and swindle my way out of this one.
Yeah,
I compromise. Because if I tell the truth, I'm going to get licks anyway. So I might as well lie and see if I can get away with it.
That's it.
Who had their hand up? It was, I got 4. Wait.
Let me take off mine.
Whoever was first, I don't want to choose to show preference. I was going to choose Darren again. I think it was Ashley, Jermaine, then Darren.
Okay, Ash.
Cool. Yeah. No, just like specifically looking at Aaron's there, I think what Leif said was right. It wasn't so much looking at good consequences of doing it, but it was this fear of, if I don't go along with what the people say now, what are they going to do to me? And what's mad about it is, you carry on reading Aaron's story. Later in the story, there's bare times they try and kill him and Moses. Like, they try and stone him every 5 seconds.
Yeah.
But he kind of has to come through this to realize, you know what? It's better to be obedient to God and risk the wrath of the people than go the other way around. And I think it's exactly that. Is you compromise when you put those alternatives in your mind, and you can't get this negative alternative out of your mind of, if I don't compromise in this way, the consequences will be so bad I can't risk it. And I think one thing that I realized is that, like you said, this is something, as Darren was saying, that he kind of had to go through, because up until now, it's always been with Moses. And he needed to realize, I need my relationship with God to be me and God. I can't be my relation to God to be, even though God was speaking to Moses and then I was his spokesperson, my relationship to God can't be, I'm faithful via Moses to God. It's like, I need a direct line to God. And what I love is, after this incident, we see him getting that more and more. But I think that's one thing that you need, is like, if you're in an environment like this, where you have spiritual brothers around you, or you have, you have mentors or whatever around you, you need to know that I've got this connection to God that isn't dependent on them. It's got to be a direct link to God in order for me not to compromise. Because otherwise, as soon as that strong person who's stronger in the faith than you is out of the picture, you're going to compromise, because your faith is dependent on them. And that can be anything. That can be a relationship. You could be in a relationship, like Leif was saying, where you're missionary dating or whatever, and it seems all good, but what happens if the stronger partner is out of the picture? So I think that's the thing that's needed, is that direct relationship with God.
Yes, Ashley. Jermaine.
Just following on from what Ashley's saying, I think when I think about the circumstances behind them, people gathering around Aaron and pressurizing him, I tend to almost think that was the only people that would have been around him, was just everybody just pressurizing him. But I don't necessarily believe that would have been the case Miriam was down there. She was faithful. And then later on, we know that there were people that chose to stay with Moses. So I'm thinking there would have been people who was a dissenting voice with everything that was going on. There would have been people who was operating with slave mentality, and then there would have been people there that would have been in Aaron's ear saying, "No, well, maybe we shouldn't be doing this. Maybe we shouldn't be doing that. Maybe there is an alternative thing that we can do." I reckon they probably at least if it was just Miriam saying, "Aaron, you might want to reconsider this and what you're doing." I reckon there would have been some people there with a conflicting idea. However, Aaron chose to go with the majority, it seems. So I reckon with the question that he was asking, Michael, how do we not compromise? I think it depends on who we allow in our circle, or who we allow to have more influence in our circle. Those with slave-like mentality, or those who are speaking faith. Because I reckon there would have been people there who were speaking faith that he would have had the opportunity to be like, I'm gonna go with this person, but like I'm gonna go with this idea instead of that negative idea. But again, it speaks to the power of peer pressure. But peer pressure is also empowered with the people you have around you. You get what I'm saying? That is something that we are in control of who we have around us. And I'm not saying don't ever go around people who are not like you, but you have to be aware of who's around you and who's speaking, who's living a life of faith imagination and who's living a life of fear imagination. Kind of like what Leif is saying, there's people who live their life in doubt and there's people who live their life faithful. You get what I'm saying? And we need to recognize when we're being influenced by doubters, and then when we're being influenced by people who are moving through faith. I reckon the majority, if he was to just take the advice from people who was moving faithful and decided to just make that choice, it might have been a different outcome for him. So I reckon that's one of the ways and how we can kind of like deal with or address when we compromise, is to kind of look at the people who we have around us. And if we do find ourselves in a situation where we have compromised, maybe that might be a time to check, who have I got around me? Who am I listening to? Have I got more faithful brothers around me, or am I listening to more people who are doubters, worriers? You get what I'm saying? So
what if, quickly before you come in there, Darren, what if it's your family? And I don't want to localize this just to faith, people of faith in terms of Christians, because you can compromise your own what's right and wrong in your own. You say you have your own standard, right? When I say your own standard, everyone has their general standard of what they think is right or wrong. Let's say a young person, they want to do right, just live life not like a criminal, but father's a criminal, mum's a criminal. Like I watched some YouTube videos about some people's situation in the ghettos in America, and I know that exists now with younger generations because times have changed where your parent is in crime, like your uncle is in crime, your granddad was in crime. He's just too old, but in a sense, he ain't left it. He's still got a name on the streets. I know a brother now where he's like, yeah, my dad was known around the area. And I'm like, wow. So you grew up hearing about the criminalities and the reputation of your dad. And then he said when he started to live with his dad years later, he was all hiding that he was smoking weed, hiding that he was smoking all of this, until his dad just asked him blatantly. He was afraid, thinking, if my dad finds out, not knowing that his dad encouraged it. That this is your rite of passage as a man, kind of thing. So what if it's certain family members or they're close to you and your heart is like, I don't want to live this particular life, not without judging them or condemning them, but that person is in a situation that I don't really want to go down this road. I want to get a job, or I want to be famous. I want to do basketball or something, but they need the environment. They're like, who are you, man? Who do you think you are? Who you? You think you're going to make us a footballer? Well, you want to try doing your music thing? How would you advise them, Jermaine? And then Darren, don't forget your point, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, it's
And I'll put you on the spot, bro.
yeah. It's again, it's if that person has got a desire, if that person's got a desire to be a basketballer, a musician, who or whatever, in the face of where he's coming from, he's been influenced from that. So someone's been around him saying, bro, you can make it as a bowler, you know. Okay. Someone's been around him saying, bro, you can make it as a music person. Right. Someone's been around him and influencing and telling him, bro, there is an alternative to lifestyle. Okay. And so it's again for him to, it's again an opportunity for that person to be like, right, I need to be more around these people. Right. Okay. These people. Now, I'm not saying that, you know, you're not gonna, it's not an easy thing. Yes. It's your family. And if they're saying, right, this is what it means to be a man, where you grow up, they're saying, this is what it means to be a man, you need to have a spliff in your mouth. That's where I grew up. This is what it means to be a man. You need to have a spliff in your mouth. You need to be galling. You need to be doing all of that stuff. But I had aspirations to be creative, actor, all of that. And when I made the conscious choice, you know, I'm gonna listen more to this side. Right. And listen less to this side. Right. That's when things started happening. But that was I had to make some golden calves before I got there. Like what Leif was saying earlier, I made some, not that I had to, but I made some golden calves, and then I had to learn, right, I shouldn't have done that. Right. I should have listened to the Miriams in my life. I should have listened to the others in my life that was telling me there was an alternative. Right. You get what I'm saying? But yes. I had to learn that. But you see, if we got spaces like this, when we're saying, you don't actually have to build a golden calf to learn the lesson. Take my golden calf lesson and have that. Yes. Have that so you don't have to do it, because I've done it. Yes. It's something I'm telling my son all the time. You don't have to smoke weed because I smoked weed. Yes. Take the fact that I stopped smoking weed and I can tell you that, Rod, that's a dead thing. You don't have to do it no more. Take my golden calf and go and do your other faithful thing. Yes. So I reckon more spaces like this where we have our golden calf stories to tell each other. So they don't have to go down that road. They don't have to experience that in order to know, Rod, there's an alternative.
What I would add to that, the challenge that we have is, no matter what I tell you, because you're right, Michael, we're not all speaking to men of faith, because I had a men of faith answer straight, but like, boom, this is it, the man of faith answer. I'm going to give that answer because I think it's important. Yes, definitely. I think the world answer is have the courage of your convictions. That's it. Like, what you believe that you set your heart to, go and do it. Like, don't matter what people are telling you, just go and do it. But the bottom line is this, the principle about that is that the courage of convictions is generally based on the things that you value. So what do you value the most? We had a study yesterday, Ash Jan was there as well, and we were looking at Psalm 1:1, which says, but they delight in the Lord, meditating on them day and night. That word delight means things that you value. Like, what is it that you treasure the most in life? For me, what we see in Aaron is Aaron probably values the relationship he has with his family, his people. That's what he values. So he's going to maintain that perhaps at all costs in that initial moment. Moses valued his relationship with God. That's why Moses runs off and complains to God all the time, because he values that relationship. I think we even like the verse that you read in Acts talks about Moses, how Moses thought when he was killing the man, the Israelite man, that he was actually doing God's job. He thought he was doing God's work. Moses has always been about God's business. Moses has never learned how to do God's business until God said, this is how you do my business. And for me, that's deep. Like, so the first answer is follow your convictions based on what you value. But for the man of faith, bruv, roll up with God. I can tell you for a fact, the moments when I've fallen is because me and God aren't rolling as much as we should be. So I'm falling, not because God needed to show me something, he did, but I'm falling because me and God aren't rolling. Sorry, I'm speaking like ghetto, I'm 46, me speak like a proper 46-year-old man. Me and God aren't spending time together. I'm not studying the word, I'm not praying. I don't wanna mince this, because I think sometimes what we do is we actually try to nice it up. Like we try to say, yeah, you know, it doesn't matter if you don't spend that much time with God. Nah, bro. You need to spend time with God, with some quality time with him. Like I spent loads of time with my wife. That's why we're still married. Trust me, if I didn't spend enough time with my wife, we would not be married now after all the trouble that we've gone through. But we put in the time, both of us, like at the beginning. That's what's going to keep you. That's what's going to keep you. Like whatever you value, you're going to need to spend time on it. Like despite what you're hearing, spend time on it.
Yeah, big point. Especially what you said about maybe at the time Aaron's value was.
You just got muted, Jim.
Sorry. Yeah, like we was just saying, maybe at the time Aaron's value might have been the love of the people. This is what I value, so I'm going to do everything to maintain that. And if they're pressurizing me to do this, and that's how I'm going to maintain that, that's what I'm going to do. But then,
could I jump on that point?
Just quick. I just thought when I said it, I realized that I'm not even sure if he values it much. I think he values something. He's got a weird value system going on because the minute that Moses confronts him, he's like, some foolish lie. So I don't know what he values, but it definitely isn't his relationship with God. But
I think you're right about something, though. You know, when you say that he values, and like we said, these people are like his family, that just hit me so hard because if you read on to Leviticus 10, we ain't got time to break it down really. But remember what happened with his sons laid up in the bayou. For strange fire, they get killed, fire from the Lord. But the crazy thing about that is after that, God says, listen, because you're the high priest, you can't mourn for them. You have to just keep it moving. You have to keep going on with your day. You can't even mourn for your sons who've just died. And it's weird because it's a tragic story. But the fact is, by the end of Aaron's story, he's learned to value God even higher than his own flesh and blood family. And I think that's one thing that's crazy in Aaron's story. That, you know, like Michael said at the start, when we think of Aaron, we think golden calf. But what I love is when God thinks of Aaron, he doesn't think of that. Like that mistake doesn't define him because he uses that, like Leif said, he uses that golden calf incident and he grows from it. And through the rest of the 40 years wandering, he gets to the point where he realizes the thing that, like his value system becomes the same as Moses's at that time, where he's saying the thing that I find the worst kind of alternative is to let God down, even if it means, you know, even my own personal flesh and blood family, my sons being lost. I would rather go through that, but stay faithful to God than compromise on God. So I think that's the thing, because I've definitely been in the golden calf situation where I'm so scared of not compromising or what people will think of me if I don't do a compromise that I go with it. But then I also know what it means to come out the other side of that and realize, you know, other people's opinion or whatever is nowhere near as valuable as just having, you know, being right with God. So I think it's encouraging to know, like, that one thing that we think of definitely doesn't define Aaron. Like, Aaron grows from that. And yeah.
Nice.
And that's it, right, guys?
Yeah, man, over to you, Mike.
Yeah.
Do I do closing comments?
Yeah, wrap us up, man.
All right, okay.
Closing comments.
So I'm going to leave with questions, and the questions for people to take away with them and discuss among yourselves, because there was nowhere enough time to really unpack each person's point, because I was listening very carefully to everything that people were saying, and some of the points I was like, we need to ride that point out some more. We need to juice it out some more. So these were the 6 questions. What is compromise? Are there times it's okay to compromise? Is there a difference when a person in a position compromises their principles, like a father, in contrast to a son? Father compromises, is that more serious in terms of than you know, a son? And then what age is the son? At which point, if the son is compromising at 10, is that deep? Or the son is like 20 or whatever? And is there a difference between the two? And if yes, explain. Is it easy to compromise one's principles? Do we find it easy? Do we find it hard? And if you do compromise, how does one come back from that? And what makes compromising appealing? I think we've touched on what makes compromising appealing, but because we're talking about compromise, let me give a closing thought and how I view compromise. And this is a thought that's going to appeal to anybody. It doesn't matter what background you're from or what you believe. And so I don't like the word, you know, you hear you got to compromise in marriage, in relationship, not just marriage, but relationship, man, woman relationship, right? Partner, whatever, okay? Whether you're married or not, doesn't matter, okay? And you hear, yeah, you got to compromise. You got to have some compromises, right? I was taught something very, very different. And this is my perspective. This, you don't have to follow this. It's not gospel, but this, I believe, is a greater, more practical way. So let me illustrate it this way. Wife wants red for the sitting room. I want green. Now, generally, we say, you know, we got to compromise. So who's going to compromise in that situation? Either her or me.
The man.
Let's say it's me,
Mm.
right? I compromise. The problem with compromise, right? Let me read the definition. The expedient acceptance of standards that are lower than is desirable. What was my desire? Green. What was her desire? Red. So if I concede to red, do I like red? I loathe red. Every time I see red now in the sitting room, what do you think I'm thinking? Now let's be practical. I'm giving something very. What am I thinking?
I hate the sitting room. I hate the color scheme.
Hate this color.
Hate
Am
it.
I ever gonna like the color?
Nah.
No. I believe that builds tiny resentment. Here's a better way. You like red, I like green. What color do we both like?
Yellow.
What color do we both like? What color do you, and then we find something we both like greater than red and green. So when the choice is then made, no one's feeling like they've compromised their standards. This is not a moral situation, but even in that situation it's not moral, there's still resentment because you have left a part of yourself, your desire on the table. You've had to kind of, and I believe a lot of the times because of this bad advice that's given to couples, you should compromise. Man needs to compromise, women need to compromise. And then men make silly statements like, even though the statement in of itself is true, but we say it begrudgingly. You know, a woman happy is a happy wife, happy life. You might have heard say that. I'm like, yeah, but you don't believe it. You're just saying it. You're saying happy wife begrudgingly. Happy wife, happy wife, happy life. I don't want to follow that mantra. I want to follow happy wife, happy life. Look, happy wife, happy life. Ho, 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 ho.
Yeah, and that, the thing is, the true is opposite as well. Happy husband, happy life. It's not the other way around. Like, because if I come home miserable, then the whole house is miserable. But if I come home happy, then the house is just a lively bunch of.
Very true. Our energy supersedes our partners, most definitely. That's a big point.
Yeah, it works both ways. I was just going to go back to what you were saying about compromise. Andrew Fuller mentioned, he gave this analogy one time. I thought it was powerful. He was using something similar about a car. One wanted a black car, one wanted a white car. So they compromised and got a gray car, black and white, right? So he's saying, but none of them liked the color gray.
Right.
They were just going on because we need to compromise.
Yes.
We're not going to go with black. We're not going to go with white. So we just go with gray. But then he says something profound. He says, why not do the biblical thing and esteem your partner above yourself and just make her have the color that she wants?
Right.
Because at least one person's getting the color that she wants and none of you are getting the color that you don't want.
Right.
And then I was just thinking, wow, that's deep. So maybe we don't have to compromise. Maybe the other centered way of doing it is just to be like, all right, have your red, and me and God will talk about my feelings towards the room being red. You get what I'm saying? We'll go. Me and God will have that conversation. You know what I mean? And then we'll do that. But you have your red, baby. You have your red, and that's all good. And then maybe on the next thing, compromise might be on the next thing when it comes to the bathroom. Yeah, we're having fair on the toilet seat, where she probably was like, no, that's never happening. But it's just like, no, it's my turn now. I'm going to get what I want and have fair on the bathroom toilet or whatever it is.
That's just an analogy, Jay. That's not a good choice.
So in closing, and thank you, Jermaine, in closing, the idea is this, in the analogy I gave, the idea is this, and I follow that to the T what I just gave. It's not theoretical, and I've been married 12 years, right? Is God actually provides something better in all situations. There is actually a better scenario. Sometimes emotion, self gets in the way of what I want and what I said gets in the way, or what I think is going to happen, as Leif touched on, Darren's touched on, Jermaine. You know, you fear what the perceived what's going to happen. And sometimes doing the right thing doesn't bring always the best thing. That's another idea I wanted to expound. We couldn't really expound on that. Sometimes doing the right choice going to bring fire and brimstone upon you from people around you, whatever. So I want to leave us with that thought that God actually will always provide a better way. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to bring better blessings immediately. Sometimes I've had to quit a job or not take a job because of the Sabbath, for example. I didn't compromise, but I had to go without for a time. And for that time, it wasn't easy, but then eventually God provided. But in that interim, it's faith, because God has to feed you somehow. Do you know what I mean? So actually going to close with some slides, and I hope and pray that those who are watching and who watch the recorded version would have received at least a soundbite. If you like the full album, praise God. It's very rare you can listen to a full album and every track is good, but if you like the full album, amen. If you take a soundbite that can help you, praise God.
Nice.
Amen. Thanks, Mike. We're gonna close with just a quick prayer in a second. Just before we do, guys, just a reminder, we're doing something differently this season than we did last season. We know, I mean, looking at the chat, it's been blowing up. There's so many good points that you guys are bringing out, and we wanted to make sure you guys were involved, not just to watch, but also to get involved as well. So what we're doing after every study, 10 minutes after the study, we're jumping on Zoom for an interactive session. So this session won't be recorded, but please come. This is the details. Take down the details. I don't know if one of you guys can drop them in the chat for YouTube, but yeah, join us on that. We'll be live in about 10 minutes. Not necessarily the whole team, but a couple of us will be on there. And yeah, we'd just love to hear from you. Keep the discussion going. Any points we didn't get to cover, because like Mike said, it's such a long story, but you guys are invited, and it'll be short, sort of half an hour, 45 minutes, but we'll keep the discussion going. Also want to let you guys know, if I know last week we had a lot of requests for the slides and for the text, so we're actually sharing them online. If you go to mightymenstudies.com/resources, let me drop that in the chat for you guys on Facebook and YouTube. Yeah, if you go to that website, you can download for free all the slides, not just from Moses' Mighty Men, but David's Mighty Men as well, if you want to do these studies yourself, or just look over the material as well. And then lastly, just to let you know that we have next week, the amazing Clark Collins is going to be blessing us. We're looking at Jethro, and the theme of that is going to be mentorship. It's going to be a very deep one. So please be there for that, same time, same place, and we'll see you guys next week. But we're going to wrap up. So Mike, could I just ask you, could you pray for us to finish us up, and then we'll end it for tonight.
Sure. Let us pray. Father in heaven, it is always a privilege to discuss your word. Thank you for this opportunity, the technology. Thank you for those who were watching live, and I pray that something would have resonated with them, with their lives, and most of all, we see that this didn't define Aaron. This didn't define him. I pray those who are not familiar with the account will see that, you know, he came back, and we know that the word says that everything we do is by your strength and by your grace. Though some things are not said explicitly in the verses, that John 5:39 tells us that the whole of the scriptures testifies of Jesus. So we know anyone who bounces back, anyone who learns from their failings, is because of grace, is because of mercy, is because they asked for forgiveness, is because they believed in the blood of Christ, the death of Christ, and his resurrection. For them, it was future. For us, it is past. So Father in heaven, thank you for this time. And I pray that you just continue to help the brothers who will be on this platform as they continue, and bring those who are looking for answers, strength, and encouragement in their walk, both those who have not yet accepted your Son as a Savior, and those who are presently professors of Jesus Christ. I ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
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 Amen. Thanks, brothers. We'll see you guys next time, and yeah, hopefully see some of you guys on the interactive study in a second. But yeah, God bless, guys. See you soon.